Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. I am beyond excited for today's guest. He basically invented the way we think about logic, science, and even how to be a good person. Please welcome the legendary philosopher, Aristotle.
Hello, Calvin. Happy to chat.
We are honoured. Now, for those who may somehow not know who you are you?
I am a seeker of truth. Most know me as a philosopher and a scientist. I spent my life trying to categorize the world, from the way animals breathe to the way humans should govern themselves. I was a student of Plato, a teacher to Alexander the Great, and the founder of my own school, the Lyceum.
A legendary resume. When and where were you born?
I was born in 384 BCE in a small town called Stagira. It's located on the Chalcidic Peninsula, which is in the northern part of Greece in Macedonia.
And what was your given name at birth?
It was Aristotle, Aristoteles to be precise.
Is there a story behind your birth name?
In my language, it means the best purpose or the best aim. My parents chose it well, I think. I spent my whole life believing that everything in nature has a telos, a purpose, or a final goal. So perhaps I was living up to my name from the start.
That's a lot of pressure for a baby. What was your hometown like growing up?
Stagira was a coastal town, very beautiful and a bit rugged. Being near the sea gave me my first taste of biology. I spent hours looking at tide pools and sea life. It was a seaport, so you'd hear many different languages and see goods from all over the Mediterranean.
What was your family life like?
It was quite academic and high status, but tinged with loss. My father, Nicomachus, was the personal physician to King Amyntas of Macedonia. I grew up in the court atmosphere. Sadly, both of my parents passed away when I was still quite young. My guardian, Proxenus of Atarneus, took over my education and eventually sent me to Athens.
I'm sorry to hear about your parents, but it sounds like Proxenus looks out for you. What kind of kid were you?
I was a collector. While other boys were perhaps practicing their wrestling, I was the boy with pockets full of shells, plants, and strange insects. I wanted to know why things were the way they were. I was very inquisitive, probably a bit exhausting for the adults around me.
What were your biggest fears growing up?
I feared disorder. To me, the world felt like a giant puzzle that needed to be solved. The idea that something might happen without a logical cause was deeply unsettling. I suppose I feared ignorance more than anything else.
What did you dream of becoming as a child?
Coming from a line of physicians, I expected to become a doctor like my father. I was trained in medicine early on, but my mind kept wandering from the human body to the body of the entire universe.
What were some of your favorite activities in school?
Once I reached Plato's Academy in Athens at 17, my favorite activity was definitely the dialectics, the art of investigating the truth through logical discussion. I loved the debates. I also loved reading. Plato actually gave me the nickname the Reader because I preferred books to the oral traditions of the time.
The Reader. I like that. What was your first job?
If you don't count being a professional student at the academy for 20 years, my first major job was being the tutor to the young Prince Alexander in Macedonia.
Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
It was during my time at the academy. I realized that while I loved my teacher Plato, I didn't agree with him on everything. He looked at ideas and forms in a different realm, while I wanted to look at the grass, the dirt, and the physical world right in front of us. That independence of thought made me realize I had my own path to walk.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
Leaving the academy after Plato died. At the time, it felt like a simple matter of politics and timing, but it led me to travel to Assos and Lesbos, where I did my most important biological research on marine life. Without that departure, I might never have become a scientist.
What was your biggest break?
Being invited by King Philip II of Macedonia to tutor his son. Not only did it give me a steady income, but it gave me the resources and protection to eventually return to Athens and start my own school, the Lyceum.
What were your biggest struggles before success?
Being an outsider. In Athens, I was a medic, a resident alien. I couldn't own property or vote. I was always the Macedonian in a city that was often at war with Macedonia. I had to prove my worth through my intellect because I had no political standing.
Did you ever consider quitting?
Never. The pursuit of knowledge is like a fire. Once it starts, you can't just turn it off. Even when things were difficult, there was always another plant to classify or another logical syllogism to work out.
Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel are essential to your success?
Walking. My followers were called the Peripatetics because I used to lecture while walking through the tree-lined paths of the Lyceum. I find that the mind works best when the feet are moving.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
I would have been a humble doctor in a small coastal village, tending to people and probably still collecting too many sea urchins on the weekend.
What was your life like before fame?
It was the life of a dedicated student. I spent 20 years at Plato's Academy. It was quiet, rigorous, and filled with the smell of old papyrus and the sound of low voices debating in the gardens.
How did relationships change after success?
It became more complicated. When you are the teacher of a world conqueror like Alexander, people treat you with a mix of awe and suspicion. I had many more students, but perhaps fewer peers I could truly speak with as equals.
Did fame bring happiness?
I believed that eudaimonia, which people often translate as happiness but really means flourishing, comes from living virtuously and using your reason. Fame is just an external good. It's nice to have, like a good coat in winter, but it isn't the source of the fire inside.
What was the downside of becoming famous?
The politics. My connection to the Macedonian throne meant that whenever there was anti-Macedonian sentiment in Athens, I became a target. Fame makes you a very visible lightning rod.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
Some thought I was arrogant because I corrected my teachers, or because I dressed quite elegantly. I just believed in the golden mean, balance in all things, including how one presents oneself.
What was your darkest moment?
When I had to flee Athens for the second time near the end of my life, I said I would not let the Athenians sin twice against philosophy, referring to how they had executed Socrates. It was heartbreaking to leave my school and my library behind.
What past regrets did you carry that you spoke about?
I often wondered if I could have influenced Alexander more toward moderation. He became very powerful very quickly, and I sometimes worried that my lessons on the golden mean were lost in his quest for empire.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
Undoubtedly Plato. Even when I disagreed with him, he was the one who taught me how to think deeply. He was my mentor for 2 decades.
What was life like in your final years?
I spent my last year on the island of Euboea, in a city called Chalcis. It was a quieter time. I focused on my writings and my family. I had a daughter, Pythias, and a son, Nicomachus, and I wanted to ensure they were provided for.
What were you working on in your career before you passed away?
I was constantly refining my works on ethics and natural history. My curiosity never stopped. I was still observing the world around me until the very end.
When and where did you pass away?
I passed away in 322 BCE in Chalcis, on the island of Euboea.
What happened?
I suffered from a long-standing ailment of the stomach. It was a natural end, though quite a blow to my work at the time.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
I had a bit of a lisp. Even the father of logic didn't have perfect speech.
That's a great humanizing detail. What was your most unique habit?
I was obsessed with diagrams. I was one of the first to use illustrations and charts to explain complex ideas, like the anatomy of animals. I couldn't just talk about it, I had to show it.
What was your favorite food?
I enjoyed simple things. Bread, olives, and perhaps some well-prepared fish. Nothing too extravagant. Remember, moderation in all things.
What was your favorite book?
Aside from my own notes, I had a great love for Homer's Iliad. I actually prepared a special annotated copy for Alexander to take with him on his campaigns.
Did you have any known rivalries?
I wouldn't call it a rivalry, But Socrates, who ran a school of rhetoric, and I had very different ideas about what education should be. He focused on persuasive speaking. I focused on the truth. We definitely bumped heads.
Tell us a story nobody talks about.
When I was on the island of Lesbos, I spent so much time studying the quote, lagoon of Pyrrha, that the local fishermen thought I was quite mad. They would bring me strange fish and octopuses, laughing as I sat there for hours dissecting them and drawing their insides. They called me the man who talks to fish.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Excellence is not an act, but a habit. You are what you repeatedly do. Don't look for a single moment of triumph. Instead, build a life of small, virtuous actions. And always seek the golden mean. Avoid the extremes.
Aristotle, this has been incredible. Do you have any closing remarks or stories you'd like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
Only that the world is a wonder to be explored. Never stop asking why. Every stone, every star, and every human heart has a story to tell, if you are willing to look closely enough. Thank you, Calvin, for this marvelous conversation. It was a delight to be remembered.
Thank you so much for joining us. We've just spent some time with the man who taught the world how to think. From his childhood as the reader to his walks through the Lyceum, Aristotle showed us that a life of curiosity is a life well lived. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.